Welcome to the Cumbria Chamber of Commerce podcast, your weekly update of business news and issues from around Cumbria. Find out how we support new business and help existing businesses to grow and flourish at cumbriachamber.co.uk. Now here's the Chamber's Business Engagement Manager, Julian Whittle, with this week's episode.
Hello, I'm here with Andy Beeforth, the Chief Executive of Cumbria Community Foundation, to talk about how the foundation can help businesses achieve their corporate social responsibility objectives. Andy, explain what Cumbria Community Foundation is and what it does.
So we're a simple organisation. We exist to address disadvantage, and we make grants to support local community organisations and individuals, and we do that with the support of families, individuals, businesses and other organisations.
The foundation, I know, has been operating for 20 years this year, and I think you've been at the helm throughout that time. So I wondered, what would you say the main achievements have been? What are you most proud of?
I think I'll sort of describe some of the headline things sort of after the first thing I say, which is really just the grants that we make change people's lives.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's a young person who needs a hand up, whether it's an elderly person who's suffering fuel poverty, whether it's someone recovering from a mental health issue, because the groups and people we support are very diverse. But ultimately, it's about changing lives. It's really very special. So I could mention things like national awards for fundraising and grant making and our response to disasters, and the fact that we've built a major sort of £20 million endowment and we've given out £44 million. But that's those, you know, the real thing is the end product. It's actually the difference that it makes to people, and whether it's people's, you know, from a business point of view, it might be employability, but it also might be helping somebody who's getting back to work. You mentioned in the start sort of corporate social responsibility, and that's one word, but I think in the West, the nuclear industry using social impact, other people talk about social value, but I think most people just talk in Cumbria, where communities are very special. It's just good business.
Yeah, it's doing the right thing.
You know, it's doing the right thing, and I think employees like to see, well, obviously their business is doing well, and then benefiting from it. But actually, if the bosses and the management are going a little bit further and helping the wider community, whether it be a school or a local charity, then you know, I think it helps in staff retention. It's just very positive.
Yeah, no, I get that. And you mentioned some of your funding comes from individuals, and I think perhaps that's particularly so, is it, in the wake of, you know, catastrophes like Storm Desmond floods in 2015. But you are heavily reliant on businesses, aren't you? Why do businesses donate then?
Well, I think they give because, well, here's a number to share. There are 6,000 charities and community organisations in the county. That's our specialism. If you're a business doing whatever it might be, you know, giving money to local causes is not your speciality. And I think people give through the foundation because there's confidence that the money will be well spent. But also it, for many of our supporters, because they in fact hand over that responsibility to us in their name, it takes one thing off the desk of whoever the decision maker is. And it just means you can crack on and do the day job confident that if you want to give back into the community, you're already doing it in an effective way, and we're there as a resource for them.
I suppose it's just like businesses outsource all sorts of peripheral activities, don't they? That's not part of their core business. I suppose this is just another way of looking at that. It
is, and we stay very close to our supporters, and but I also think they get reassurance that their money's been spent alongside other businesses and other supporters, so it goes further. The impact's greater. And going back to what I said before about changing lives, you know, we're actually moving the metrics on particular issues in particular communities. It's, you know, charity as a word, you know, sometimes has connotations of sort of being old-fashioned, but actually charities over time have been innovators in health, they've been innovators in education, and we're a strategic investor It's our knowledge base that means that ultimately we are going to, whether it's improve educational standards, improve confidence and ability in people, or just help people get better recovering from illness.
So let's look at some of the options for businesses that are looking to donate. I mean, is it common practice for a business to set aside a set amount each year, or perhaps a proportion of its profits, and hand that over to you?
Some do, and Business in the Community, which is sort of like a national charity that was sort of set up with the support of the Prince of Wales, sort of makes recommendations. But in the main, I think the answer is no. I think most people running their businesses are focused on running their businesses. A small number do that, but I think it's, when I speak to business owners or people running businesses, it's normally the first time we've had a sensible sort of structured conversation about what do they want to achieve.
I see. So is it more on an ad hoc basis then?
I think it's ad hoc, and it's when the when the balance sheet allows, or when an event comes along. And I think what we're here for is it sounds like a grand word, but we think it's important, promoting philanthropy, promoting sort of thoughtful giving.
And you mentioned earlier, you talked a bit about this, that that obviously if businesses hand over the responsibility for distributing the money that they want to donate to you, they're kind of, it's one less headache for them, so they concentrate on the day job. Are there any other advantages to donating, if you like, through the foundation rather than inviting grant applications directly to the business, say?
Well, they're obviously saving a lot of time. They're saving tax if they're actually making a profit, but they're also getting added value in terms of the advice. So some of our fund holders, actually are quite close to us and actually decide where the money will go, but only after we've already worked with them about what their geographical priorities are, what their subject priorities are. So we'll perhaps present them with a short list of things, and some of them involve staff teams. Some will also do fundraising. So we've done things like with our Winter Warmth Appeal. We'll encourage people to take part in fundraising efforts. And I guess it's not necessarily part of a structured sort of staff development plan, but actually one of our former team members said, teams that sort of play together, stay together, and whether it's taking part in our Big Sleep or in the past when we've had sort of cycle event fundraisers, they're just other ways of sort of connecting team members with us, seeing how the money's spent, because that's really important, and then tying that back to this is where I work is a really positive thing. Yeah.
So just to be clear here, once the money's handed over to you, how much control does the donor business have over how it's used?
Well, it depends how much they give us. So having what we call a donor advised fund is sort of at the higher level. So that tends to be around businesses either giving away a minimum of £10,000 a year or creating an endowed fund of about £100,000 a year. Other businesses and other individuals either sometimes give us larger sums of money and then leave us to spend it, or give a smaller amount of money and then just set a theme or a focus, and then we report back on an annual basis as to how the money's been spent.
So is it possible for a business to set up a grant fund with defined priorities?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's really important. And that fund will also carry their name, will help with publicity and promotion. So some of our supporters are absolutely anonymous because that's the way they want it to be. Yeah. But others, quite understandably want to be recognised for what they do. So if anyone picks up our annual review, so our major annual publication, all of the now 100 plus funds that we manage are listed in there. Now, the anonymous ones have got quite intriguing names. That means you would never sort of trace your way back to who actually provided the money. Yeah. But say, for instance, with things like, our current biggest corporate fund has been United Utilities. Yeah. And we've managed their legacy fund, and quite understandably, they want to know, or they want the community to know, where the monies are originated from.
Obviously, yeah. Now, I believe there are two types of grant fund: endowment funds and flow-through funds. Can you explain what the difference is and how they work?
Yeah, so endowment, which again is a sort of old word like philanthropy.
Yeah.
It's investments. We invest money. So actually, some of our earliest endowment funds that were set up nearly 20 years ago, we invest the capital sum and only use the income and a proportion of any capital growth, so that the idea is the real value of a fund stays the same. And what's fantastic about endowment funds is, so some that were set up 20 years ago have now given away as much money as the original donation. The capital sum is still there, and it's still giving. Yeah. Now, in these relatively low interest rate environment, that's not necessarily everyone's first choice, because some people just want to spend their money and have maximum sort of effect and impact. And that's what a flow-through fund is. Right. So a flow-through fund is just money in, money out, normally within the year, but when it's spent, it's spent.
It's gone. Yeah. What about businesses that maybe can't afford to part with hard cash, but are happy to volunteer staff time perhaps to help with a campaign or an event? Can you facilitate that too?
We can. We don't do it directly, but we're partners with something called a Cumbria Exchange. So that's a website that has a very simple facility for both businesses to put up perhaps capacity that they've got to lend. Yeah. So charities and voluntary groups can go on there and see what's to offer. But also, more importantly, charity groups can put up their own challenges and requests, and then businesses can see whether they actually are in a position to help.
And it fits with their aims kind of thing.
And we work very closely with another organisation, the Cumbria Council for Voluntary Service, and they have a volunteer officer, and they'll place people. We're looking to do more work in the West, where we'll actually put programmes together around both putting money into groups and facilitating mentoring, or other volunteering support, but we're not quite there yet. We're about to launch something called the Youth Positive Disruptors Programme, and that will be a mix of grants to young people to challenge them to receive some money. They have to come up with an idea about what positive change they're going to make, but then they'll actually have a mentor working alongside them to sort of help them shape and deliver whatever their project is.
Now, you mentioned already United Utilities. Can you give me some other examples of businesses you've worked with and some of the initiatives that they've been involved with?
Yes, so one of our longest standing supporters is Westmoreland. So that's the Dunning family with the motorway services and Reged. So they have a grant making fund, and their focus is particularly young people and the communities where their workforce comes from. So we're talking broadly a triangle that goes from Penrith down to Orton on the M6, across to Kirby Stephen, across by Appleby and up again. So they're very keen to influence young people and their ability. So we've funded quite a number of youth organisations, but we've also supported, because they see themselves as principally a food business. We've funded a programme in schools with the Soil Association.
All right,
we've also funded some arts and drama activities in Kirby Stephen School. We've also placed with each of the 3 secondary schools a sum of money that the school can spend flexibly in support of individual pupils that they know, for whatever reason, have got a challenging circumstance, or there are some barriers to their education. And we think that's really important in terms of being able to target money really well. But what we're aiming to have is sort of consistent, high-level quality youth provision in that area, because particularly youth organisations, for children who don't get on well at school, so it's great we're putting money into school, but for those for whom school isn't always the best experience, then there's other out-of-school support for them.
Right, okay. Now, you also operate a membership scheme. How does that work? What does it involve?
So we have 2 levels of membership. Challenge, which is slightly more expensive than our standard corporate membership. And we've got about 120 businesses who give regularly. So this is an annual donation, and it's tiered depending on the size of the business. But at the top end, a Challenge member, I think, pays 15. A larger Business with more than 50 employees would pay £1,500. A small business paying standard membership, I think it's £250.
Right.
What they get for that is recognition. They get a membership certificate. They get a listing on our website and in our annual review. But they also get access to support and advice from us, and just recognition that they are supporting the community. So for some smaller businesses who have got limited resources available to support the community, it's one way of doing something good. I think because, and what we, certainly what we're very conscious that the support that we get from our corporate members actually enables us to do a huge amount. So say we've mentioned in passing the flood appeal in 2015, so our corporate members, make a contribution that enables us, we're not a huge organisation, but just have the capacity to be there and respond in times of trouble. Now, on the back of that, we raised over £10 million.
Very impressive figure, yeah.
So that's just one example.
Yeah.
But we report back to our corporate members every year on the totality of our grant making, because we see that they are a fundamental part of our capacity to support the community.
Oh, that's great. So hopefully business people listening to this podcast are now inspired and want to get involved. So how can they get in touch?
They can just ring the Community Foundation office. Yeah. We're blessed to be based at Dovenby, so just look us up on the website, cumbriafoundation.org.
Yeah.
All the how to sign up is on there, but I'd encourage them to ring in and either speak to me or one of my colleagues, Jenny or Anne in our development team. Would be more than happy to talk them through the different options.
So the number is
01900 825 760.
Brilliant. Thanks, Andy, and all the best for the next 20 years.
No, thank you very much, Julian.
Thank you for listening to the Cumbria Chamber of Commerce podcast. You can find out more about how we're supporting Cumbrian businesses at cumbriachamber.co.uk and cumbriagrowthhub.co.uk. In the meantime, thank you very much for listening, and we'll have another episode for you next week.